Hello, welcome to Women in Retail Talks, the podcast where C-suite executive women in the retail space share their stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, which is a membership-based community of senior-level women in retail. Today, I'm joined by Melissa Lowenkron, the Chief Brand Officer at Fossil Group, where she leads brand strategy, design, merchandising, product development, and marketing for the Fossil brand. Acting as a central steward of the brand, she drives its vision, execution, and overall business performance. With deep expertise in luxury retail, merchandising, and brand building, Melissa has built a career defined by scaling and elevating iconic brands. Before joining Fossil 4 years ago as Senior VP and General Manager, Melissa held senior leadership roles at Neiman Marcus and Bergdorf Goodman, where she oversaw merchandising across many categories, such as handbags, shoes, beauty, jewelry, and apparel. Her career reflects a consistent track record of strategic leadership, operational excellence, and brand transformation. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
So excited. We realized at the beginning of this call that we've actually met before. Melissa
Yes.
spoke at one of our events in Dallas, which is where you're based there, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. So nice to see you again. I'd love to walk through your career journey, a little bit about this business strategy that you're focusing on now, and sort of your thoughts on the future of retail. So let's start at the beginning for your career journey. So you've built your career through the merchandising ranks, which we just kind of went through. So how has that foundation shaped how you lead brand and creative teams today, coming from the merchandising side?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. My career has always been a balance of art and science. And I think that's actually been the best preparation for leading a brand.
Hmm.
The art really helps drive cultural relevance. It's what stops someone in front of a window or in their social scroll, creates desire, and captures the customer's imagination. And I have to say, the most creative items aren't always the most commercially successful, which is somewhat intentional. And quite honestly, it's okay. Because on the flip side, the science is what really sustains the business. It's the financial discipline, the read on what consumers are buying, the understanding of which stories convert. And right now, actually, at Fossil, we have a good example of where art and science come into play together with our relaunch of the Big Tick. The Big Tick is a memorable piece from Fossil's archives that we first introduced in the 90s with a very distinct design. And now with the relaunch, we're fortunate because it attracts a really broad audience. It speaks to millennials and all customers who remember it from the past, as well as it's really resonating with Gen Z consumers who are deep in Y2K nostalgia. And if I think about art and science within Big Tick, we chose for the relaunch to start with an archival reissue of 5 Y2K pieces, which are direct from the archives. And they're not going to be our biggest revenue driver. We didn't intend them to be, but they're driving a lot of significant cultural value, getting people talking about the brand, generating buzz, and reinforcing our heritage, which is really all about the art. And then simultaneously, we launched the Big Tick movement into some of our current icon collections. The Machine collection being one, which is one of our most commercially successful lines and anchors our overall business. And so ultimately, by putting the Big Tick movement into the Machine collection, it's really where the science lives. And it's introducing customers to both Big Tick and providing a halo for Machine. So for me, I'm excited because I get excited about the art and the science of the business, and bringing a good balance to both, knowing when to lean into each, really helped me as a merchant throughout my career. And now it's really helping in my job leading Fossil brand.
Yeah, that's a great example. Really clearly explains the art and science combined. So, but what about your role as a chief brand officer? I think it's the first time you've had this role. So, can you talk a little bit about a mindset shift you may have had stepping into this, and especially at a time when Fossil's undergoing so many interesting projects and significant transformation?
Absolutely. And for most of my career, I was leading a business that managed hundreds of brands simultaneously. And so I knew when to lean into a brand or pull back based on performance, aesthetic, or buzz. And with many brands in play, there's always at least one, and usually a few, that you can really maximize and feel the impact of your decisions pretty quickly. Being a chief brand officer, I have a singular brand focus, which changes the dynamic. The horizon I deal with is longer. And so I feel like I can see where Fossil's going as a brand well before the consumer or the industry does. But it takes time from concept to development to production to market. It's rewarding to see that momentum building, but the results do not show up in the P&L immediately, which requires a lot of patience. And that's obviously a shift from what I was used to in the past in terms of the timeline I work within. And then also, I would say at Neiman's, the nature of the customer relationship was a little different, not dramatically, but when you're at a multi-brand retailer, specifically Neiman Marcus, we had a strong editorial voice and really curated the right assortment and told customers what was relevant. And while we were adapting to market nuances, it was specifically within the US. Now at Fossil, I'm at a single brand and not just a single brand, but it's a global brand. So while the same instincts apply, I would say the complexity deepens and Fossil operates in well over 100 markets around the world. And so the implications aren't just small tweaks or adjustments at the margin, it's fundamental to how we show up in each market and ensuring that there's a brand consistency and cohesiveness globally, but then also allowing for flexibility based on regional and cultural nuances. And I would say one of my favorite examples, because we spent a lot of time really working on this market, is India. It's one of our biggest markets, and they love Fossil brand there. And they also have specific types of product that they like that isn't the same as everywhere else. And so they have an affinity for rose gold that's stronger than other markets. They love premium movements and materials. So our penetration of automatics and ceramics are higher there. And so it's interesting that they carry a core global assortment, but we also make a lot of special product to cater to the consumer preferences. And I have to say, based on how much the consumer there loves Fossil, it really makes us happy to make specific product that we know they're going to love. So I would say a mindset shift has also just been the dramatic difference of really thinking through regional preferences while keeping a cohesive and consistent brand image and point of view.
Just sort of sticking with the theme of transformation and your turnaround plan. I know Fossil has made some strong progress under its turnaround plan. I had been reading about it. So delivering above expectations. So how do you translate that business momentum into brand energy and storytelling?
I love that question because actually, I would tell you the turnaround isn't what's driving the brand energy. The brand momentum and energy are what's driving our turnaround. The turnaround can't happen without high quality, relevant product mixed with strong storytelling and a devoted customer base. And that belief really shapes how I lead the brand and the team. I prioritize building teams that uncover authentic stories and are able to bring them to life in ways that resonate broadly. Fossil brand has a rich heritage rooted in design, creativity, and storytelling. And sharing those stories, creating a real emotional connection with our customers, is ultimately just as critical to our recovery as any financial or operational lever. I feel really lucky to lead the Fossil brand. Fossil is a brand people have a personal history with. We hear it all the time. It was their first watch, it was a milestone gift, something they've worn for years. And we see that insight as not just something sentimental, but it's something strategic. It tells us that our role is to show up in meaningful, accessible ways across different life moments. And the Nick Jonas partnership was a great example of how I was able to translate that into action. Nick didn't just front a campaign for us, he co designed the collection. And the entire story we told was rooted in his real connection to the brand. Similar to so many other people, Fossil was Nick's first watch. And that authenticity shaped everything from the creative direction to the environments we chose, like diners, bowling alleys, and everyday places that really reflected both Nick's story and ours. And then we took the story and we were able to scale it globally, from New York to India, Germany, South Africa. And through that, we made sure that we remained culturally relevant while also staying true to the core idea. And I really think of that as a very intentional leadership, identifying the right story, grounding it in truth, and then orchestrating it at the right cadence and scale so we can reach different audiences. And watches are an interesting category. Functionality is often a given, but necessity isn't. So, differentiation comes from emotion, storytelling, and connection, which are all really key to how we lead. Fossil is an inherently accessible brand with a diverse customer base, which means we don't tell just one story, but many. And leading that requires building a team that is both creatively ambitious and deeply attuned to culture and consumer signals. And ultimately, I view my role as creating clarity around which stories matter most, empowering the team to execute them exceptionally, and ensuring we're building both an external connection with our customers and internal momentum with our key stakeholders. Because when those two things align, the brand energy becomes our growth driver, not just an output.
Great. I think I'm going to jump ahead because we're kind of covering a lot of this great information. So you talked a little about new markets and the fact that you have some interesting new countries that you're dealing with international. So how are you evolving the brand while staying true to its core DNA? Like I know that the brand is very known for being accessible, but there's also an aspirational part. So how do you kind of combine those and keep it growing?
Yeah, no, it's tricky. I would say it's something we talk a lot about because it's really important to us to not only stay true, but to really celebrate Fossil Brand's heritage while also making sure that it feels modern and relevant for today and that it is evolving. And there's some qualities that I would say are inherent to the brand: optimism, nostalgia, innovation, authenticity, and boldness. And those are all qualities that haven't changed since the beginning of the brand more than 40 years ago. And at the brand's inception, we really found success as a fashion watch brand that offered an accessible price point for vintage inspired quality products. And there's always been this underlying nostalgia in it. And as time evolves, nostalgic references change, but people's emotional connection to the idea of nostalgia doesn't. So, similar to when we started, our customers are still looking for timeless quality timepieces at accessible price points. And we're fortunate that we have a 40 plus year archive of amazing product to pull from, similar to the big tick that I was just mentioning, we
Yep.
reintroduced. And at the same time, the brand's always been known for innovation. So that recognition gives us a runway to really push the boundaries and think about how we introduce and what we introduce in terms of new product. And I'm really excited. This fall, we're launching our signature collection, which is our first premium line in over a decade. And it's the perfect example, I would say, of how we're staying true to the DNA of Fossil Brand, celebrating craftsmanship, design, and our heritage as an American watch brand. But we're also evolving the brand with more premium product as part of this launch.
Great. Again, you're creating a new brand. You have a new focus, it sounds like. So let's talk a little bit around leadership around that. I mean, how do you align your cross-functional teams? I'm sure you're working with a variety of teams at the company around like a clear brand-led vision.
It takes a lot of communication and
Yeah.
collaboration. My team and I have to articulate the direction both clearly and in a really compelling way so that everyone from sourcing, planning, IT to sales believes in and really gets excited about the vision and the strategy so that they can ultimately execute against it. And I would say in doing that, it also requires a lot of listening on our part. The sales and regional teams are often closer to their respective customers than we are. And so they provide us with a lot of really valuable insights. And We have to be thoughtful about that feedback and include it as we're developing the strategies so that it's not a one-way communication. There's a lot of two-way communication and collaboration to make sure that while it's a brand-led vision, it works holistically.
Hmm. Communication is key. I
Yes.
feel like, and along those same lines, I feel like communication and leadership kind of go hand in hand. But can you talk a little bit about how your leadership style may have evolved as your scope and responsibility have grown, at Fossil?
I would say the biggest evolution for me from a leadership perspective has been learning to trust people differently.
Hmm.
I'm not an expert in every functional area I oversee, and I've had to learn to be okay with that, which, it's definitely something you have to learn and adjust to. So I've become much more deliberate about letting the people on my team be the expert in their domain and helping them grow within that. And ultimately, I really embrace and love the fact that my job is to drive results by leading people, helping them be their best, and I get to continue to grow with them as well.
That is hard for type A people, right?
Yes. And I'm type A plus, plus, plus. So it's definitely something that I had to intentionally learn to do. But, in hindsight, you're also proud of yourself for growing like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know that the company has been kind of going through I mentioned this earlier, a little bit of a transformation. What has been a tough leadership moment around that, around transformation?
Yeah, turnarounds are really hard on teams.
Yeah.
And our company was in survival mode for a pretty long time. And I would say that really affects how people work, how they feel, and what they're able to give. So I've spent a lot of time listening and coaching through that period. And I wouldn't say it's something that I learned, but I'd say it reinforced what I've always believed, that empathy isn't separate from performance. And
Mm.
to be a good leader, you have to really understand what your team is carrying in order to help them deliver their best work. And so, leading the team at Fossil through this transformation and through a high level of change, while also keeping the brand moving forward, it's required a lot of steadiness and focus. I say to the team all the time, we're fixing a plane while we're flying it. And that's not easy, but
Yeah.
you have to really support the teams to help them get through that. But I'm excited to say that we're now able to transition into a growth mindset. We're seeing the path to profitable growth. And while that will require different things, it's a really exciting moment. And what we've learned through the transformation is just going to help fuel the success going forward.
That's so helpful. I'm sure to a lot of people listening who might be going through transformations. It's almost like in the moment it could be stressful but you have to look at the big picture, at the end of the rainbow, I guess. And
Absolutely. And I think most people, it's interesting. I know very few businesses who aren't going through transformation right now of some kind.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
really different from, as I was growing up in the industry, where we are today is very different than, unfortunately, the length of tenure I have in this industry.
And actually, that's kind of leads into my last question, which is looking ahead, what does success look like for you and your brand? So that's kind of the first part. And then the second part is what advice would you give to leaders stepping into roles during periods of transformation?
So I love the first part of your question. As we talked about, we said I was type A with many pluses. I would also say I'm a competitive person. So I'm always driving towards something. And I like to think about what does success look like. And success for this brand is a few things in combination. I would say a deeper engagement with our existing customers while also having a meaningful acquisition of the next generation of Fossil fans. The idea of not just selling watches, but being in the conversations and communities that matter to our customers. On the financial side, I'd say we're on the precipice of profitable growth and taking market share, which is exciting and something that I'm really proud of what the team has done to get us to this point and everything we have planned moving forward. And then also measuring success by our cultural footprint. how much a brand is being talked about and celebrated by people outside the brand itself is so important. It's one thing for us to say things are great, but we really measure what other people are saying, whether it's press or customers or influencers, and thinking about cultural relevance. And we track that, whether it's awareness, consideration, share of voice. Those are all really important metrics to our success. And then, as far as advice, I would say you have to stay focused on what actually needs to be achieved and make sure that you prioritize within that. I'm a big believer in being very curious. You have to be open to change and willing to take calculated risks. I believe in celebrating the small victories. The road is long, especially in a transformation, and the milestones matter. And then, I've talked about a little bit about empathy, but you have to be patient and empathetic, knowing that not everyone handles pressure and uncertainty in the same way. And then I think you also have to think about yourself a little bit and find the people who are going to support you, because you're going to need that while you're supporting others. And also figure out what refuels you so that you can keep showing up your best.
That's a great list. I hope the folks listening have a pen and are taking notes, because I think all of those things are so important during periods of transformation. And, as we said earlier, in general, I think you kind of just explained what leading is like in retail right now. I think, every company is going through transformation. Every company is trying to figure out, their next step. So it's always good to have some kind of guidebook like you just brought to the listeners. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's about all we have time for today. But Melissa, it was so great to chat with you again and to learn about everything that Pulse is doing. It sounds like you have so many cool things coming up. And congratulations on your role, and good luck with your company and your role, and hope that we can see you in real life in the future soon.
I will look forward to that. Thank you so much for having me today and hosting this really special podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please go to womeninretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review our show. Lastly, if you're a female retail leader interested in joining our community at Women in Retail Leadership Circle, visit womeninretail.com/apply. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.